Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So this is going to be my top 10 episodes of The Flash Season 1. Originally I started it out as like a top 5 list, but then I realized I was leaving so many episodes out that were amazing, I just ballooned it to 10. There are a whole bunch of reasons why The Flash is one of the best comic book shows on TV right now. Most notably the strength of its actors, its villain in particular, Tom Cavanaugh. He played like 3 or 4 different characters this season. There's the strength of its writer's room led by Andrew Kreisberg. I actually heard one of the writers say that they have this motto that they go by when they're conceiving of storylines, like whenever they go to pitch for characters or write scripts. Humor, heart, and spectacle. It's like the 3 guiding things, in that order of importance. Also, a huge strike in its favor is that all the writers and a lot of the people that work on the show are huge comic book fans, especially of The Flash. And Geoff Johns is, somewhat on staff. I mean, he's creative advisor, but most of the material that they draw from in the comics is from Geoff Johns' run. So it's like they're able to go straight to the source. And really, that's what it's all about, getting the characters right. That's really what Geoff Johns does on all the movies and the TV shows. So here we go, top 10 episodes, starting with number 10, Rogue Time. This was the second part of the 2-part time travel episode, in the middle of the second half of the season. It's Barry's Groundhog's Day. He learns all about time travel from Harrison Wells. It did a great job of telling that in a really funny, but kind of scary Terminator way. Like, you might cause the future apocalypse if you go back and change anything. But they also have that nice joke with Weather Wizard threatening to, bring a big tidal wave on the city, which is exactly what he did in the original timeline. As much as the first part of that episode, I consider it like a 2-part episode, but I broke them apart on this list. The second part, this episode, Rogue Time, is all about Cisco. It's like a really strong Cisco episode. Cisco gives up Barry's identity to save his brother. And even though they hate each other, that's the heart of the episode. He really loves his family. He says he's never going to do it again. He never wants to put himself in that situation where he might give his friends up, but they won't let him either. So, it just goes to show you that Cisco has his nuclear family, like his original family, and he has his Team Flash family. On to number 9, who is Harrison Wells? This is one of the more fun episodes, like, the body swapping episode. Even though there's a pretty notable villain, we have Hannibal Bates in the episode. The strength, I think, in this episode is the humor as it plays on the relationship between members of Team Flash. You go from Barry kissing Caitlin and the awkwardness that causes, to Barry beating the crap out of Iris West. That was a lot of fun, just letting them do that, using the body swap to have some fun with that. It kind of makes you wonder how the real Iris West would do in a fist fight, although she did clock Peekaboo with the fire extinguisher. On to number 8, Revenge of the Rogues. This is the illustrious return of Captain Cold and Heatwave after they've become the Rogues. It's like a direct follow-up to Captain Cold's debut in episode 4. I'm putting a team together, are you in? And he gives Heatwave his gun. Suddenly the whole episode turns into this really fun Prison Break reunion with them just going to town on the city. So it's a lot of fun because it's right out of the comics, Barry eating blasts from both guns at the same time, some great visual effects in that scene. The pathos of both characters, like we get to know Heatwave a little bit more, who's absolutely crazy, but that's how he is in the comics. So Dominic Purcell's performance is fairly authentic to the Heatwave of the comics. And it does a good job of addressing villain decay. Remember, at the end of episode 4, Captain Cold got away with both guns. Villain decay is that thing that, unfortunately sometimes happens when villains that you can't beat in an episode come back in an episode later, much, much weaker. They're much easier for the heroes to beat. At the end of this episode, we learned that getting caught was all part of Captain Cold's plan. So even though it looked like he lost, that was just part of the plan. On to number 7, the first episode, the pilot. I can't say enough about the strength of the Flash pilot. There were some things that you could tell that they were still figuring out, like the special effects. The special effects got way better over the course of the season. But there are just like a few really important things that they did in this episode that laid a really strong foundation that just helped them build momentum from episode 1 to episode 23. And that's really what you want to do. You don't want to have like a really strong build up the first half of the season and then just have things fall apart in the back half, with a lackluster finale. Just like gradually ratcheting up the WTF. But what they did is they used the mystery behind the murder of Barry's mother as the backbone for the entire season. The whole season, he says it in the intro, every single episode, I'm going to find out who killed my mother and get justice for my father. So regardless of which villains come each week, what new problems happen, it's all about finding out who killed his mother and getting justice for his father. But on to number 6, The Flash versus Arrow. The illustrious Flaro. This is a big deal for very obvious reasons. Big TV crossovers, like big event-based crossovers, are really hard to do. What the Arrow and the Flash people are doing, the Berlanti Productions people, the people that make all these shows, are trying to do is create a comic book universe in the same way that they do big event-based comics during the summer. Like you have DC's Convergence, you have Marvel's Secret Wars, and they all form this giant mega story. So if you're really pumped about Legends of Tomorrow, that spin-off show, you can thank Flaro. And what it allows you to do is have some fun with the characters in a way that you normally wouldn't in their own environment. So like the Arrow characters get to be a lot funnier. They get to have a lot more fun when they're in Central City. But on to number 5, The Man in the Yellow Suit, the mid-season finale. I already said that Tom Cavanaugh, in the way that the Reverse Flash is written, is one of the things that makes The Flash one of the best comic book shows on TV right now. And this episode is all about him. Like it brings him to the forefront, it steps out of the shadows. We get some amazing comic book references, like we get the Flash ring, one of the most iconic aspects of the Flash costume. We learn definitively that there is a wolf in the henhouse. The person we've trusted all season is the villain of the series. Very heavy on the heart, very heavy on the spectacle. Barry renews his mission to find the Man in Yellow, but he knows he's not strong enough, and the stakes just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We've been at this a long time. I always win. Merry freaking Christmas. On to number 4, Out of Time. This took like the Flaro Spartacus crossovers to a new level. I mean, Arrow casts a lot of Spartacus characters. Now the Flash does too. The episode gives us time travel and some really badass visual effects. Seriously, we've gotten some great Firestorm effects, but this took it to like a whole new level. We have someone that can make a giant tidal wave, and it pushes Barry so fast, so hard, that he punches a hole in time-space. So not only were the stakes really high emotionally, like the payoff was huge, compounded by the fact that Cisco died. That was probably like the most emotional scene all year, next to Barry saying goodbye to his mother in the finale. On to number 3. So this is kind of like a tie between two episodes. I just couldn't, find a way to separate them. So we have The Nuclear Man, the Firestorm episode, the first big Firestorm episode, and Grodd Lives. If you saw any of the Firestorm episodes this season, you understand what a big deal it is having that character on screen and what it means for future characters that they can bring on. If they can do that, they can do just about anything. I know there's some issues with the movies, but literally there are thousands of DC characters that are all really amazing. Robbie Amell and Victor Garber were just the icing on the cake. Seriously, if you're a big fan of Victor Garber, go back and watch him on Alias. Robbie Amell, of course, just a whole lot of fun to watch, especially after The Tomorrow People, which was also another Greg Berlanti series. It took a little while to get both of the Amells on screen, but they eventually did that too. So, it's just a fun meta thing. Talking Gorilla Grodd is the I Am Groot of television this year. Think about the impact of Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy, and culturally what that meant. The most popular character in a movie last year was a talking tree. How awesome is it that that is completely ridiculous? The same thing is true of television and Grodd, fraction of the budget, but who would think that a gorilla would be so amazing? Conceptually, it just sounds like it'd end up super silly. But they actually, Guardians of the Galaxy reference here too. The person that voices Gorilla Grodd, that does the voice for him, also voices Drax the Destroyer on the Guardians of the Galaxy cartoon. So just a nice crossing of the streams there. Everybody hold out hope for Gorilla City and just think of the Cisco Planet of the Apes jokes. On to number 2, Tricksters, Mark Hamill's episode. This is another one of those Gorilla Grodd type moments. Never thought we would live to see it on television. Mark Hamill, of course, one of the busiest actors in television right now. He does so much voiceover work. He's the freaking Joker, and he's reprising his role in the Star Wars universe too, so he's gone big again. But the thing that really made this episode was how meta and compelling his performance was as the Trickster. This is just like a laundry list of the interactions going on. You have him on screen with the original Flash John Wesley Shipp, just like they did on the original series in the episodes that they were in. He's reprising his original character from that TV series that nobody working on the Flash worked on. Like that was a completely different crew. And they managed to drop as many Star Wars references as possible. I am your father. Almost every single show on television makes a Star Wars joke at some point, but to get Mark Hamill, to get Luke Skywalker to do a Darth Vader line, that sets the bar so much higher. I don't know how they're going to top that, but I'm sure they will. And finally, my number 1 episode, the finale. Not a lot of shows can say they nailed the landing the way that Flash did. It started out with the mystery behind Barry's mother's murder and traveled in a full circle. Like things came full circle. Barry went back to that moment, and in doing so, kind of gave birth to the TV multiverse. You get a big payoff because the villain goes down, and he does so with a heroic sacrifice from someone who could have taken a dramatic left turn and become a villain himself, Eddie. And we learned that the timeline that we've been in all season is actually an alternate timeline. The original timeline was that first one, the Barry with the white Flash emblem. This whole season has been the alternate timeline. So they leave the show on a really strong foot to start off season 2, especially, with the idea of the multiverse and what's going to happen now that there's this big time vortex getting ready to eat the Earth. They Easter egged the shit out of Jay Garrick and Rip Hunter, which leads into Legends of Tomorrow, so they're starting to integrate the other shows in a more meaningful way. And all throughout it, they've been really upfront about the storylines that they're going to be working on, the characters they're bringing on. Like that, Mirror Master, they showed us Caitlin Snow as Killer Frost, all things that they're going to deliver on. I'm sure after I, watch the episodes like 10 or 15 more times, I'll reorder my list. But here's my big question for you guys. What are your favorite episodes of The Flash? Here's another question too. Which characters, which big characters do you want to see come back? Do you want to see Mark Hamill come back? Really big actors like that are tied up with franchises are a little harder to pin down. But if you're only looking to get 8 days out of them, it's a little bit easier. Really what we need to think about now is how is the Legends of Tomorrow storyline going to influence the Flash Season 2 storyline? Because now we're into time travel, which can be really confusing, but the Flash writers are always really good at explaining themselves, via the characters. Like Cisco, for instance, he's kind of like the explainer character. So I feel like as long as they pick their time travel logic and they're consistent in that, it'll be an amazing season. So here's what's going on this week. A lot of you have requested some specific videos. I am working on a Suicide Squad video. I'll do that tomorrow along with another Arrow bonus video. So I'll probably do a character video. I also have to do a Mirror Master video. So be sure to subscribe to get all that stuff. Mirror Master might end up being next week, but there's just a whole bunch of other stuff that I plan on doing videos for. So if you have any special requests, just leave them in the comments. Just in case you guys didn't see it, I just did a big Bucky Captain America Civil War video. You can click here to learn all about that. He's going to be a big part of that movie. And you can click here for my Flash Season 2 predictions. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tomorrow.